The last keyboard was a weird one. This one is just a bad one. Visually, it's pleasing thanks to the case it came with, and the swirly white and green resin is pretty cash. But what lies inside of it, however, is the issue here. I grabbed this back in February from an eBay seller for $105 plus another $12 for shipping. I mainly wanted it for the case and the set of caps, to be honest, since those KBD fans colored resin keyboard cases ain't the cheapest things on earth, and the set of caps that it had on it were part of a GMK group buy. What actually ended up happening was I just stuck it on my shelf and didn't do anything with it for 3 months. I had to move out of my old place at the beginning of April, and I finally remembered it existed when I unpacked it, and I thought, well, this crackhead-ass YouTube idea is the perfect use case for this green fucker. What a coincidence.
It's not all bad though. The caps that came with this board are pretty neat. This is the GMK Yaman set, and was available in a group buy that shipped out back in 2019. Yaman is a type of cured ham originating in Spain. It has a rich, nutty flavor that is recognized around the world. I'm not a food expert, that is the paraphrased description from Drop's website where this group buy was available. And if you go to a store and you can pick up some Yaman, it is pretty fucking good, so I do recommend trying it. For those unaware, a group buy is when a manufacturer makes an item but wants to keep a limited run, so prior to manufacturing, the company puts out an interest check which will determine if people are interested in the item. If the populace has interest in the item, the manufacturer will set up a group buy, so the collective buying power of that group will help fund the production of that item. The typical benefits to a consumer in terms of a group buy include getting the item before everybody else does for the sweet, delicious internet points, and to get the item for a more desirable price. The downsides to group buys are that you're giving your money to a complete fucking stranger across the world in hopes that the group buy will be funded enough to be manufactured. Not only is this a risk because you're giving some random asshole your $250 for a set of keycaps that have cupcakes or some shit printed on them, but you're also going to be waiting a long time, as group buy timeframes typically stretch 6 months to a year or even more. And now you're probably sitting here wondering with this information, why the fuck would anyone be that goddamn stupid to buy into one of those? And the answer I have for you is that this hobby is a money sink, but I like the way these $250 cupcake keycaps look on my keyboard, so leave me the fuck alone. Back on topic, the set is kinda neat, I like the red color. You wouldn't know the set is themed after Spanish cured ham if you didn't see the other caps with the little strips of bacon on them. I wasn't a fan though, but a friend of mine was, so I built him a GK61S with Gatoron optical browns and that set of caps on it for him as a gift for his birthday. The case is from KBD Fans, which happens to be one of my favorite places to get stuff. My endgame board is made with their PCB and solid brass mounting plate. KBD Fans does a line of resin cases and armrests that legitimately look beautiful. This keyboard would look great if I put on a matching set of keycaps though. The PCB, a KBD Fans DZ60RGB, has underside lighting so the case glows with the RGB. If you haven't noticed or don't know me, I dove headfirst into the unicorn barf aesthetic, and to me this genuinely looks amazing. Now we can talk about the part that I don't like, the switches. These are Yock Trash Panda linears, and they have a 50-gram actuation weight and a 60-gram bottom-out weight. Trash Pandas are kinda shit, but for a reason. Yock Trash Pandas are one of the switches that I consider both subjectively and objectively bad. Subjectively, I think they're scratchy, hollow, flimsy pieces of shit with no satisfying sound. Objectively, these are notoriously scratchy. Scratchiness refers to the feeling of pressing a key down and having it not feel smooth. You can feel the stem and spring moving inside of the housing and brushing against it. It's not a fun feeling when typing on it for a while, especially when you're typing up a script for a YouTube video. How do you fix the scratch then? With lube! Krytox Dielectric Grease is the most commonly used brand of switch lube, and it's perfect for getting rid of scratchiness. What, were you expecting a montage of me pulling these out and lubricating them? Fuck no, that takes hours, not to mention that these are soldered to the PCB, and I don't have the equipment on hand to desolder them. I mentioned earlier that these are kinda shit, but for a reason. Switches can be made from 3 different types of plastics, those being polyamide, or nylon, polycarbonate, or PC, and polyoxymethylene, or POM. Polycarbonate and nylon are typically used to make housings, and POM plastic is used to make the stem, but there are also switches with all of their parts being made out of a combo of the 3, 2 of the 3, or just 1 of the 3. Trash Pandas in particular have a nylon top and bottom housing with a POM stem. By themselves, the switches are kinda shit. The nylon housing feels quite cheap and it lends to a lot of the scratchiness in the switch. However, there is a reason why these switches are so cheap to buy and why people recommend buying them. Something can be done with these switches that make them go from shit to shine, and all it takes
is swapping some parts around. This is the Holy Panda, a very hallowed, and appreciated tactile switch that's loved throughout the community. The Holy Panda is made by combining the housing and spring from a Trash Panda and the stem from a Halo True. Holy Pandas are loved by most of the community because of how tactile the switch is. It's a perfect balance of way too much and not enough tactile bump. I've used Holy Pandas constructed from Trash Pandas and Halo True housings, and they do feel pretty angelic, but I've never owned them. I do, however, own Glorious Pandas, which aim to emulate the original Holy Pandas with some upgrades in terms of their molding and tooling. Not to mention the fact that when constructed Holy Pandas are used in a keyboard, that typically shoots their value up from low to astronomically high for no goddamn reason. For the game, I've chosen Battlefront 2. And before you say anything, I actually really do like this game after EA removed all the loot box mechanics from it. I originally thought it was shit when I played it and then never played it for like 5 years, much like everybody else did, but it's honestly fun now. If you haven't, played it in a while, I recommend picking it back up. It is pretty fun. What about the board though? I don't have any numbers regarding the travel time for the switches, but they just feel moderate. Maybe a little longer than what I usually use, I'm not exactly sure. I can't judge a switch's travel time by use since every switch is different. I can only compare it to the one I use the most often, those being Telio V2s. The Trash Pandas just feel average. Milquetoast is a term that comes to mind. It's just nothing to write home about, but it'll get the job done. I will say the spacebar suffers from stab rattle. Stab rattle is a phenomenon where the stabilizers on a keyboard aren't lubricated. Stabilizers are typically screwed onto the PCB or clipped into the mounting plate, and they just stabilize the longer keys so they don't wobble when you're trying to hit them and you always have an even keystroke. These can also be lubricated with the same Krytox 205G0 dielectric grease that you use on switches to cut down on the stab rattle. Here's what this keyboard spacebar sounds like. And here's what a nice, crisp, thocky one sounds like. The difference is literally night and day. One of the things that I intend to do with this series is to modify the keyboard as much as I can to bring it to a point where I could consider it serviceable, or at least as close as I can get to serviceable. Unfortunately for you guys, however, the switches are soldered into the PCB, which means I can't remove them at the moment, and to be brutally honest with you, I'm not at all good at lubricating stabilizers, so you won't get to see me tear into this and piss around with it. It's easier to do these mods with hot swap boards, but that's a topic for another time. Unlike the last video, there wasn't too much to hear with the Zlant, which was fine. This sound test is going to be a bit better because this keyboard is, audible. trash pandas don't sound that good to me per se, but that's just my opinion. If the PCB was a hot swap, I'd have already taken the switches out and lubricated them, but I don't have a soldering iron, solder, a wick, or flux with me, and even if I did, I just don't have that kind of time. This board is a solid 2.5 Tech-C carrots out of 10, and unfortunately doesn't get the stamp of approval. To be honest, the only thing that I dislike about this are the switches because they just fucking suck. I can understand putting some switches that you don't want into a board with some shit thrown together and selling it to make a profit and to clear up stock for newer and better parts, but why solder it? Why make a board with these pieces of fuck? I don't know, man. I don't know what the story behind it was, and we will never know, unless the seller sees this and gets in contact with me, but that's a conversation for when I have more than 19 subscribers. I want to extend a quick thank you to you guys, gals, and they-thems for watching. I like seeing people interested in this hobby, and the last video got more attention than I envisioned it would. But for this time, and for last time, and hopefully for multiple times in the future, thank you very much for watching. I do deeply appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, or night. Now that I got you here at the end card, we do have a Discord server, but it's got like 5 people in it, and it's kind of lame, so you should totally join. We can talk about keyboards, and we can tell stories around the campfire, and maybe cuddle.